Welcome back to Doing Bart Things, and in this episode, which I'm going to try to keep quick, I tried this video earlier and I got way sidetracked, so I'm going to try to be focused. We can do this. Welcome back to another low rent production. So today, what we got is the Seasonic Noc TUA edition Prime TX 1600 power supply. It's a 1600 watt power supply. This screams really expensive to me. But I thought it was funny that Noc TUA actually teamed up with Seasonic to make a power supply. Seasonic is probably my go-to for power supplies. I probably trust them the most these days as a power supply manufacturer. Having said that, like I've got an Asus power supply in my system today. But Seasonic we trust. They usually are pretty solid. I haven't had any problems with them at all. So if you're looking to buy a power supply and you're just not sure what brand to take, and power supply is not something that you want to jack with that much. You kind of want to make sure when you buy it, like it's reliable. You know, it's kind of like you can, you know, if your computer case is an off-brand or something, and you like it, and there's air that flows through it, you know, great, cool. If everything fits in there, power supply is the one thing that you plug into everything in your PC that's money. I mean, the only thing that it doesn't connect to is the case through, you know, but you do bolt it into the case, like you screw it in. So the only time I've ever seen something, the only time I've ever witnessed an entire PC die and everything in the PC die at once was when the power supply went bad. Like that's the only, there was a friend of mine who is power supply fried, and it took everything with it. Literally everything in the computer died. And that's only happened one time that I recall, and that was the time it happened, and it was because of a power supply. So something to keep in mind. When you go to get a power supply, you kind of want a good power supply. They make them a lot better, I think, these days as far as safety measures. So typically I think they're okay, and I'm not saying you have to buy a Seasonic, but just power supply is one of those things, you know, make sure you get the right wattage. Make sure, you know, you're not skimping on that too much. I don't know what you need a 1600 watt power supply for, though. 750, 850, 1000 watts usually is kind of your range for a normal system. I would probably even go less than that if it's just a real low power draw system. For a gaming rig, 600 watts is probably as low as I'd go, depending on what the components are. But, you know, all the way up to 1,000 watts. And when you get to 1,000 watts, it's sort of like, well, you know, unless someone comes to me with, hey, I need giant, well, not giant, I need to power like 52 hard drives or something crazy, then I'd be like, well, all right, maybe we, you know, maybe we get some more power, you know. Anyway, cool little power supply. I thought was interesting. Cool little 1600 watt power supply. I hope that I would like to see them make lower wattage versions of this that are smaller. This looks like it's 200 millimeters. But if they make, you know, like an 850 watt, 1000 watt, 650, 750 watts, you know, that'd be cool to see. Maybe if these become like a line, that'd be pretty neat. Maybe they'll do that. Next up, real quick, AMD 9800 X3D, they're going to launch the day after Core Ultra launches. So that launches the 24th. This launches the 25th. That's kind of funny. So anyway, remains to be seen what happens there. I just thought it was funny, AMD going, no, look back at us, is what's happening here. As far as what's going to be the best option from these CPUs, right at this moment, my opinion, it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, because, you know, the further out you hear, the rumor mill is like, these are going to be the strongest things ever. And then as it gets closer and closer to release, more people get their hands on it. There's kind of that leak in behind the scenes that sort of says, well, maybe everybody hold on. My intuition tells me from what I've seen, we're going to be kind of in the status quo. I think it's more important for these companies to launch well. Like AMD needs a good launch. The 9000 series launch, the non Vcache chips, that was not a good launch. I honestly don't know why they even bothered. They could have just waited until the X870 motherboards are ready, launched with all that, together as kind of like a package deal, like, hey, here it is. But they didn't. I feel like they needed more time to get their drivers and Windows stuff in order. I hope that they take that into consideration next time going forward, and I hope they've done it this time. Intel also needs a good launch. Intel needs some good press. They need really badly to launch the CPU. The tough part for Intel is I don't think this thing is going to perform super crazy well. I think performance on this chip is going to be hopefully right around on par with the 14900K. So, the top end, right? The 285K. And if it is, maybe they can salvage it as long as it's a good launch. Things click off without a hiccup. Then cool. Like maybe they can win some mind share there. But I don't think it's going to win at gaming. I really don't. I think the 900 XRD is going to be the better gaming chip. We'll have to see. We'll get benchmarks. Look at it. But I don't think the from the sounds of it now, the 285K may not even beat the 14900K in gaming. So that's going to be a tough one for Intel, right? We'll have to see what happens. It's going to be an interesting launch. So that's going to be the 24th, and then the 9800 XRD will debut on the 25th. So, or supposedly. This is rumor mill. It's marked as rumor, but some people have kind of confirmed it, and so there's kind of your dates. We'll see what happens. Could be an interesting launch for sure. Let's move on to the last thing for today. All right. And I got a comment in, I think it was the last video, about the possibility for an 18 gig RTX 5070. So what would happen to get that is basically NVIDIA would, I think they're going to have 6 memory chips on this card. So what they would do is change the 12 gigabytes, which is 2 per chip. They would use the new GDDR7 3 gigabyte chip, and that would change these to 18 gigs, essentially. Here's a question. Does it matter, really? So 12 gigs, I think, should be the standard. I think we should have gotten 12 gigs on a 5060, okay? The reason why is we're maxing out 8 gigs on things like Hogwarts Legacy. I think there was another couple of games out there that I heard about. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head. But if you crank up everything, you can max out 8 gigs of VRAM. And when you do that, it's not that it performs badly, it performs horribly. Like you really have a problem. When you max out your VRAM, it's not an enjoyable experience. You start hiccuping. It's like you don't want to be on that edge of that. So I think that 12 gigs ought to be the standard. I just think that 12 gigs or better will get you out further and further into the future for not running into that problem. As games progress, we get more ports, games get bigger, they pull more into memory, into that VRAM. I think it's really important that we get bigger and bigger VRAM to go along with it, right? So we progress along with the games. I think 32 gigs is probably overkill by a lot on the 5090. If the truth is, if the 5090 had like 20 gigs, it wouldn't be that big a deal, right? But you're paying a lot of money for that card. You want that card no matter what to last, for a long time. And if you're buying that card, I hope you're running 4K. I really do. Like, you better be running 4K, because 4K ray tracing, like that's the kind of demands that you need to put on that card in order to get your money's worth. Like you don't. I'm just hoping that nobody's running something at 1080p. Like they probably are. Funny enough, but that's kind of the funny deal about it. Is I'm like, no, like that's you buy that card because you want to get the absolute best, right? I can't imagine spending $2,000 on a card plus, but that's the deal with that. So I think 32 gigs, that's fine, whatever, warranted. Your basement is what I'm concerned with, though, and 8 gigs is going to very quickly become, I think, maybe not enough quite for turning up all the details on some games, and you will have GPUs out there that are absolutely strong enough to run that game at maximum settings, but there's not enough VRAM to do it to the point where you can run it reliably. So that's my concern, and that was kind of what I want to talk about here. Does that change my opinion of the 5070? Not very much. Not very much. I still think for what you're getting, it's going to be overpriced. If it were 18 gigs at the price that we're going to sell the 12 gig variant, I would be a little bit happier about it, slightly. But I think their competition is going to release a card with similar performance characteristics that has 16 gigs, probably, that would do just fine. And I would be perfectly willing to go buy that over this because it's less money if it performs the way it's being advertised. That I'm talking about the potential upcoming announcement and release of the Radeon 8000 series. So if the RX 8000, 8800 XT, whatever they end up calling it, comes in at $500, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It does that potential, what they're talking, and again, it's rumor mill. Let's take it for what it is. It's rumor mill. They're talking 4080 levels of ray tracing and raster performance, potentially somewhere around in there. Ray tracing is much improved on the 8000 series, according to leaks and rumors. If they do that, that puts it in a very similar category to this card, and I would take that card over it because it's going to be a little bit cheaper. And I don't want to give NVIDIA my money when they're running out a card that I think should be a 60 series, calling it a 70 series and charging those prices. But that's my opinion. That's just personal me. Maybe it'll be cheaper than what we think. Maybe the 18 gig will just be like $50 more or something. Who knows? I doubt it, but if it is, then that might be a really interesting conversation possibly. We'll have to see. I think they're going to release these cards, and they're going to really pump up like they did the last generation because they have not learned their lesson. They're going to say, look at our DLSS, look at our frame generation software. Look, it only runs raster at 50 frames per second, but it can do 2,000 frames per second with frame generation. I don't really like frame generation. I'm not a giant proponent of it necessarily. It's, it's another software feature thing. But that's what they're going to push. They're going to push DLSS probably like 4.0 or something, saying that, this is going to revolutionize everything, the software plus the hardware, woo! And that's cool and all, but, I want to get the hardware that I paid for. That's what it boils down to. I don't want some software fix that all of a sudden, if there's a glitch in the matrix, so to speak, or if video games don't optimize for it, then suddenly it's not worth anything, right? In the game that I happen to want to play. I want to make sure that I buy enough raw performance that I can, even if I want to play a game in a year from now after I buy this video card, I will still be guaranteed to have a decent level of performance, even if it doesn't take advantage of all the features that this card provides. That's kind of the logic that goes on for that. So anyway, cool. Well, I hope I've explained it. That's it. Guys, leave a like if you would, a subscribe. I'm going to try to be more Johnny on the spot with covering some of these launches and have some more videos because why not? I think it's fun to talk about. And I guess if you're still here with me, then you like me talking about it too. So I'm going to try to do it more. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you in the next one.